So the prince in Prince of Persia has been through a lot when it comes to his adventures. Here are just a few of the systems you could play this series on. Jeez, I didn't realize there were so many versions and remakes, and even remakes of remakes. So there was even a movie version of The Sands of Time, but don't even get me started on that. Or that horrible remake they tried to bring around for the 360. Yeah, just go ahead and throw that shit away. I'll save that game for another review. The version we will be taking a look at today is the original Xbox version of The Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time. This story contains some spoilers, but if you haven't played this game by now, what are you even doing with your life? You should go play it before you watch this, because trust me, it's worth it. So The Sands of Time starts off with the prince and his father's army attacking an unnamed palace in the search of some treasure. Among the ruins, the prince finds what is known as the Dagger of Time. The prince and his father's army travel to Azad to present the gifts they found to the Maharaja. The vizier tricks the prince into unlocking the Sands of Time contained in the hourglass that they brought with them. He unleashes the sand that turns everything and everyone into a monster. The prince, the vizier, and Farah, a prisoner brought from the first palace, are protected by the prince's dagger, the vizier's staff, and Farah's amulet. Wait, can we stop for a second? Doesn't the vizier look a lot like Jafar from Aladdin? Or is this how viziers dress back in that time? Yeah, I'm definitely getting an Aladdin vibe. The prince escapes. He discovers a sand pillar, and upon entering it, the pillar shows you what to do next, and it allows you to save your game. It's kind of a cool feature. It's kind of like seeing into the future. In some of these, they show him unlocking like special moves and such, but how does that work? Does he unlock them when he sees the vision? Or does he know he's going to unlock them later? It never really explains that, but I digress. So Farah and the prince develop a bond along the way as they dodge traps and they find their way to the treasure room where the vizier had the Sands of Time hourglass moved to. Farah, I think, is an okay AI, but in some areas it just feels like babysitting. You even have to protect her in some areas, and if she dies, then it's game over, even though she dies in the game. When you finally make it to the treasure room, the prince has doubts that Farah is telling the truth about getting the sands back into the hourglass. This part kinda irritates me because the prince has been following Farah and allowing her to help with puzzles and basically building a bond. It just doesn't make sense because out of nowhere he doesn't trust her for some reason. But of course the last part of the game wouldn't happen if he just ended it right then. Of course somehow the slow ass vizier is there to cast some magic or something, causing Farah and the prince to fall further down into the palace. This part right here has gotta be my least favorite, and let me explain why. So they both end up in the tombs after the prince distrusts Farah. Then you have about a minute of what looks like a Windows 95 screensaver while they talk. The prince somehow then loses Farah in the smoke, even though she was right in front of him. And after what seems like an eternity on this long ass staircase, you're forced to chase her into the baths. So there's a trick that I remember having to figure out when I first played this part. As you pass the doorways, you have to listen for water splashing, and when you hear it, you enter that door. So how in the hell are you supposed to figure that out? The game doesn't tell you that at all. You just kind of have to listen and figure it out on your own. Well, after you enter a few of the doors, you're greeted with a cutscene with the prince and Farah taking a swim and basically building a bond again. And after it ends, the prince wakes up only to realize it was a dream, but he wakes without his sword or dagger. So here's what I don't get. Why couldn't the prince just fall and Farah takes the dagger and the sword? Like, when he wakes up, he just realizes it's gone. Why'd they need this whole forced, like, love story or whatever this is? It just doesn't make sense, and it completely throws off the pacing of the game. The prince eventually scales his way back up the big-ass palace and back to the treasure room. Farah sacrifices herself to allow the prince to capture the sands back into the hourglass. See what I mean? She ends up dying anyways. In doing so, this rewinds time all the way back before the attack of the unnamed palace that Farah lives in. The prince, still with the dagger in hand, finds Farah and tells her the story of the vizier and the sands of time. And this last boss right here is so annoying and very disappointing. You basically beat up an old man who's trying to avoid death. I think that's why he wants the sands.
I could have been immortal.
So after he's defeated, Farah tells Prince she believes him, but she doesn't know why he made up such a story. And this right here is one of my favorite cutscenes. Just watch.
Return it to your father's treasure vault.
Guard it well.
I owe you thanks. But why did you invent such a fantastic story? Do you think me a child, that I would believe such nonsense? I said I owe you thanks. You presume too much. Such a fantastic story. Do you think me a child, that I would believe such nonsense?
You're right. It was just a story.
So let's dive into what else the Sands of Time has to offer. So upon beating the game, you can unlock the first Prince of Persia to play. And can I say, it's still really hard. You can also unlock the second game, The Shadow and the Flame, which is even harder. They're both a great remake of the original and a great nod. So if you weren't able to play those back in the day, you now have the chance. Along your journey, you can find cracked walls that lead to a mysterious part of the castle, or nowhere, according to the conversation between Farah and the prince as shown here.
Farah, how long have I been
Gone? What are you talking about?
Never mind.
These lead you to a fountain that'll boost your life bar permanently. That comes in handy later on. So back to the Dagger of Time, it allows you to rewind time, essentially saving yourself from death, which I had to do many times. You can also refill your dagger by stabbing fallen enemies to recover their sand. As you recover the sand from enemies, if you collect 16, you can earn a power tank. Those allow you to unleash the true powers of the dagger, allowing you to slow down enemies and even unleash what I call the Mega Freeze power. This allows you to eliminate foes with lightning speed. Along the way you find what's called sand clouds. If you stab 8 of those clouds, you gain another sand block, giving you one more chance to rewind in case you screw up. So overall, Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time is a classic and a great reboot to boost the series back into the spotlight after that failure known as the Prince of Persia 3D. The game is really challenging in some parts, but it has a great story, great graphics, great characters, but the only thing I wish could be fixed was that forced relationship between the prince and Farah. There were also areas that didn't really have a lot going on and slowed the pacing down of the game, so you were pretty much just talking to yourself, literally.
After all, she is a Maharaja's daughter. A conquered one, but still. Her blood is royal. Besides, what better way to tame her insolence? It's not so bad for a woman to have a little spirit. It's a challenge!
Other than that, I would definitely recommend this title to anyone if you haven't played it. If you have, and you remember your first time playing this game, why don't you share it with me in the comments below. So if I have convinced you to go play some Sands of Time, I've done my job. On that note, I'm Veteran Gamer. Thanks for watching.